Just got home from picking these up. Purchased them from a gentleman for $50. There is a little bit of damage, especially on this one. That's burned through the finish, which is fine because I'll be sanding that. Again, damage on the side here. Not only are those bottom two drawers really just one big deep one, which I would rather they be two drawers, but on both, this is splintered and breaking apart. And I think it's because the drawers don't have a guide to help it slide back and forth properly on this wood. And that's both pieces. So what I'm going to do is try to salvage these by removing it, gluing it so it's strong again. And then when I put them back in, I'll turn them around so that this is in the back is in the front because it's more stable. And then I'll need to attach a drawer guide because as is, it sags. I'll need to give them a good cleaning. The new paint job and some new hardware, I think they'll be beautiful. So let's get started. The moment of truth. It's been a couple of days since I glued this, and hopefully the repair will be sturdy enough to reuse this. Yeah, looks pretty good. So I have the rails in. Now what I need to do to stabilize the drawers so that when you open them, they don't rock up and down, is I need to attach one of these track guides. It's time to start the process of transforming them. So I'm going to go ahead and start sanding it a little bit just to prep it for paint. This is pretty deep. All these areas that look white are areas that I think will need some wood filler. I'll probably go ahead and patch those up before I finish scuff sanding the top. While sanding, I could hear a popping noise and I realized that this top corner was loose. So I'm using a glue syringe to insert some glue underneath. I'll wipe the excess glue off, clamp it, and wait for it to dry before I proceed. And if you notice, that's press board underneath. There are a few areas that I'm going to need to patch up with Bondo. These are some pretty significant dings, especially here and here, and press board, oh, and there too, all the way up. Press board is exposed. I need to properly seal that, and Bondo is a very tough filler. It dries very hard, and that'll keep that area structurally sound. I also need to do it here because if you look from this side, there's a divot right here. So the same thing as the back, on the bottom, and same thing there. So I'm going to mix up some Bondo and patch those areas. I'm working indoors because I don't have an option right now. So I'm going to put on my heavy duty respirator and open the windows when I'm done, put a fan in the window, let the room clear out, and then I'll return in about 20-30 minutes. I waited about an hour and went out and used a very fine piece of sandpaper to lightly scuff sand the areas that I had sprayed with shellac. The shellac leaves a shiny texture. You want to dull that up a little bit so that when you do paint, the paint doesn't appear different, have a different texture on top of the shellacked areas as opposed to the not shellacked areas. I dusted them off with a tack cloth and then headed indoors to start mixing my paint for the sprayer. I'm trying to use up paint that I already have in my inventory, and I found this beautiful shade called Burnished Pewter. I have it in Valspar's cabinet and furniture paint, and I started to stir it up and pour it into my sprayer. Now I always filter my paint so that I can be sure I'm eliminating any debris getting into the paint that might clog my sprayer. I'm also diluting it a little bit with water. You don't want to dilute Valspar's cabinet and furniture paint too much because it has such great bonding elements, but your paint will need to be thinned in order to spray properly out of your sprayer. This paint goes on beautifully with a roller or brush as well. My nozzle wasn't installed properly, which is why it looks like stripes. I eventually figured that out and fixed it before spraying anymore. So there's some things in the paint I'll need to sand smooth, but clearly this needs some filler and this needs more sanding. And I will do that with some wood filler. Let it dry, sand, and then wipe off the dust and put the second coat on. For the most part, everything looks nice. I chose wood filler because it's easier to sand, and I think this all looks pretty good. I'm curious to know what that's gonna look like once paint is on it. We'll see. But one thing I do know, I'm going to need, I think, to put some Bondo here to prevent this veneer from peeling up anymore and to smooth it out. I'll put some Bondo there, sand it smooth, and then off camera, I'm gonna take my shellac and spray the top again, since we're now having a little bit of wood and some of the wood filler exposed. I'll spray it with shellac, let it dry, lightly scuff sand that, and then I will spray the second coat. I just got home from work. It's Monday afternoon, and I've been dying to get back to these side tables. So they have 2 coats on them already. Top looks pretty good. This area here, I'm not happy with it. Next day, y'all, I'm struggling. I'm struggling with this corner. When I came out late last night to check, there was still texture. It almost looked like the veneer was lifting. So I took this because I didn't know what else to do, and I scraped it. I mean, I just took the entire chunk out of the corner of this side table. It's the only thing I could think of. And I filled it with a lot of Bondo again. So now this will be 2 wood fillers and my second application of Bondo. So I'm almost afraid to sand it to see what I end up getting. But let's give it a whirl. Now this looks promising. Nice cornered edge, absolutely no texture here or here. The only area of concern is this tiny little area. I'm going to fill that with some wood filler, let it dry, lightly sand it with this, spot spray it with the shellac, spray another coat of paint on top, and hopefully that is it. That lifting veneer on the second side table, let me go ahead and fix that, and I'll show you how I did the other table. It took drastic measures, but I needed to dig out all the loose and lifting veneer. Then I filled the void with Bondo. I put it on way too thick. You don't need to use that much Bondo. It's a real bear to sand smooth. This time I got smarter. I used the white Zinsser shellac base primer instead of that clear shellac. When you apply any color, including this white, it shows imperfections better, and it enabled me to know that I did in fact completely sand it smooth. So I proceeded to paint. After the paint dried, I sprayed on 3 coats of Varathane's polyurethane.